I'm chatting today with psychologist Natalya O'Keefe about the complexity of grieving for our non-human animal companions. I asked Nat how she would like to be introduced, and she said, just say I'm a psychologist and I like dogs. So I'll expand on that humble bio for her. Nat is a clinical psychologist registrar, which, as I understand, means the top of the ladder in terms of psychologist, but she will likely disagree with me. Her professional experience is diverse, and she currently works in the area of adult mental health. Nat is someone who has always studied and continues to study while practicing. And one of her current study areas is animal-assisted psychotherapy. I personally know Nat as a dog mama and a friend who has a really natural ability to talk about the painful stuff in life while at the same time having this, light-hearted edge, which is in no way dismissive, but it's rather warm and embracing. I actually saw a GIF on, I think it was on your Facebook page, Nat, and I thought this just describes you so well. It was a cartoon, and in the cartoon it said, the horrors are never ending, yet I still remain silly. I wanted to start by chatting about Hugo Huggy Bear, who was a little Maltese terrier mix, a quirky little man who had the best smile and gave the best dog cuddles in the world, didn't he?
He did. And thank you for that introduction. That was wonderful. That was excellent. Thank you. Yeah, Hugo was a very special dog. When I first brought him home, his name was Hugo Foster because he was supposed to be a short-term,
Really?
half rescue, half. Yeah, he was living at a house with this woman who has a history of getting dogs like Maltesers when they're little and them being like, oh, I can't, I've got to get rid of this dog.
Oh,
So
wow.
my dad's dog Jazz came from that woman, so he knew what situation Hugo would be living in. So I thought, oh, I'm going to take him out of that situation. And my dad sent my stepmom over 2 weeks later and said, "Your dad will take the dog. He'll take Hugo. We'll have him as
Yep.
part of our pack." And my sister, who's not a dog person, was like, "No, Hugo lives here."
Oh,
And
wow.
he from that day was his name had to be changed to Hugo Permanent.
Okay.
Um,
I love it.
but and look, I really did believe, and I know the belief is always the crazy one, that he would never die, that he would just be permanent,
Yeah. Wow.
and that he would always be there. But yeah, I lost him last year.
I kind of get why you thought he would be permanent because he had such a big energy, didn't he? And he was the type of dog that a group of people could be around, with everybody with dogs, and everyone knew Hugo. Like everybody wanted Huggy Bear cuddles. Yeah.
Look, that's right. And he was just so he woke up every day and thought, this is the best day. Like today, this is the best day. And you think, okay, well, today's a pretty good day. And then you'd wake up the next day and he'd just be like, no, this is the
It's the
best.
best day.
This is the best. I swear, this is the best day. It's
Yeah.
today. And he did that for 12 years every day.
Wow.
So and he would hold on. He would hold on with his legs, his front
Yeah.
legs, his back legs. And if he didn't want to be put down, you knew about it. Like he would physically hold on to you. And
It's like, I am Hugo
um,
permanent.
that's yeah. And he would even like Velcro. He would sort of, if I was on the couch, he would sort of flop his whole head and neck and body like over your neck or over your face. He was just so present and always, almost always in physical contact. And such a weird little dog anyway.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a
He was
weird little
quirky,
fellow.
wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He was very quirky.
Oh, he'll never ever be. I will never forget him. Hugo Huggy
And I
Bear.
think it really speaks a lot to what kind of dog he was, that when I let everyone know that he had died, everyone had their own personal stories about him. He was so connected to other people, which I feel is maybe unusual because our pets are usually quite insular and in
Yeah,
terms of who, if you meet a friend's dog, it's like it's just a friend's dog, but everyone would have these stories of Hugo, which I thought it was quite, but really speaks to how special he was.
it really does. I had an auntie who I loved who died years ago, and what I remember is everybody that knew her knew a different side of her. It was like she'd reserved something for everyone, and that's what you're saying about Hugo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he used to, it was so funny, he used to cry. He loved my dad so much. He used to cry when he would see him,
Oh, really?
um,
Oh.
and just start howling and crying like he was about to pass out, like, oh God, you're here, I can't believe it. And he had that sort of relationship with my brother as well.
Mm.
Um, but so yeah, it's a really special, weird little dog. I
Yeah,
mean, he used to sing some Mojo Juju songs.
I remember.
And for about a year, I thought whenever I had a shower, there was a small child crying, and I couldn't understand what this sound was. Like, why is there always, am I going mad? Is there a child crying? And then one day the bathroom door was open, and I realized it had been Hugo the whole time, like singing along in his little high pitched howl. So that was a
Oh,
very funny
wow.
discovery.
Thank you so much for talking about Hugo because I just wanted people to know that, this isn't just a kind of sanitized version of how do we cope with grief. It's coming from someone who really has loved someone, so special and understands the bond and how significant non-human animals can be in our lives. And I just wanted to talk about that because we are so lucky to have experienced that. Like the deepest loves of my life have been non-human, and not everybody gets to experience that love.
I used to look at both Hugo and Murphy when would they be out running and they'd go up to strangers or they'd go and do this or that with someone else, and I'd see their faces and the people's faces and think, oh, this is, and part of my language here, but this is the fucking best. Like,
Yeah.
seeing the joy that they were bringing others and watching them have fun was just, it filled my heart in this physical way of just pure joy. They were just
Yes.
enjoying life and making other people laugh or just running around being silly. And
Yeah.
I used to look at them and think, I should never have got you. I shouldn't have got you. I shouldn't have done this because you'll die one day and I won't cope.
Mm.
It will just hurt so much that um, I should never have got you. And then I think, well, the depth of the joy that they do bring when they're with us is worth that pain.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
but the pain is, I mean, even now,
I
it's
know
like I
it's
can
tough
feel
about,
him not being here. Mm.
and it's I think with you said that Huggy was with you for 12 years, and we go through so much in over time, and they're with us through everything. People move house and change jobs and in different relationships, but they're our constant. So I know I'll look back when my boy died and it was almost a quarter of a century we were together. And I look back and I think, wow, how much I changed and how much he was there. And it's
That's they're there through, like, I moved interstate twice and lived in a cabin for a year while I was doing uni, and then would live in different houses, or we lived in a house for a while that had another dog.
Yep.
And we drive back and forth from Armidale in New South Wales twice a year. So these enormous drives, and they were just there all the time. They loved the car ride. Hugo and Murphy both would just, they'd get in their little spots in the middle of the back seat where they could see me, and we would just drive.
Yep.
And you can be poor or rich or happy or sad, or, you know, and they're just there.
Yes.
And they're like, yeah, we're here.
Yep. Yep.
They're really just an integral part of day-to-day life.
It can be, it's a stronger, for me anyway, it's a stronger connection than with humans, because I know it can't be broken. You know, they know you better than anyone else.
That's, yeah, and it's, I mean, they're the embodiment of, what's that term? I always forget my words. You know, they're non-judgmental, but they're that, not transactional, unconditional love.
Unconditional.
It's complete unconditional love. They love you, and you love them. And you can't get in an argument about they've not done the chores. You know, sometimes, look, Mo, part of my game now, will sometimes bring in the poo from outside, but
let's go.
But you just get rid of it, and it's
adorable. Yeah. And if someone else did that, it would be so fun. Yeah.
I'd be calling the police, I think. But there's certainly, you know, it's just complete acceptance, and we don't get that from everyone. It's almost, I mean, it's similar to when people go to therapy. There's this whole hour where it's just about them, and they've got one person that's just focused on them, and they can talk about whatever they want, and they're fully seen.
Yes.
And then they go back into their lives where there might be people that are expecting things of them or not treating them well, and all of the things that happen in life.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, having a dog is like having that space. It's just you and them and it's all about that relationship, and it's such an important.
That's an interesting way to look at it, isn't it? But it's absolute presence.
Just absolute presence, and the sense of acceptance, I think, is an all. Yeah, because you just love them and they just love you. Yeah.
True. It's the big love.
It is the big love. It's certainly the most fulfilling love I've experienced, just aside from non-romantic love with friends and family. But certainly deeply, deeply important.
Yes.
Love. Yeah.
And that's just wanted to then talk about just some of the really tough things that happen when our beloved dies, and just I picked a few of them because they're just things that I've spoken about with other people who have lost, and they just kind of resonated with me. One thing is, even if we have had a peaceful death, or a death that nothing could have, nothing actually went wrong, kind of was okay, there's still that moment etched forever. We still remember every single thing about that day leading up to it, every moment. And I imagine that if an animal is killed tragically, or if it's an unexpected death, that must be even worse. But why does it happen? Why can I remember everything about the moment and the whole day of what happened, and I can't remember what I did yesterday?
There's a really, the way that our brain works. So from a really neuropsychology kind of perspective, the brain's job is to keep us alert to danger, and things that are really meaningful or different or novel. So if we go to, catch the bus every day or drive every day, and we drive the same route, it's just like one experience. It's in our head, it's automatic. It's just the same thing every day with maybe a little bit of road rage depending on what roads you're driving on.
Okay.
But there's nothing that sort of stands out. So I've just got my nose is sorry. There's nothing out of the ordinary. So we're not really processing it because there's nothing to process. And if, say, I nearly got collected by a fire engine earlier in the year, and that gave me an enormous jolt, like, oh my God, and now I can remember it. And it was 6 months ago. And that wasn't a near miss, like they were still ages away, but I just got a shock. So the brain says, turn on and process everything. So when there's something as important to us as the loss of a companion animal, whether it's unexpectedly or all planned, or any range of experiences between a sudden death and a planned death, our brain is on. It's thinking about what's, I'm scared, I'm frightened, I'm sad. My dog, how is my dog feeling if it's a doggle? Insert any animal into that spot. But our brain is on high alert. So the emotional systems, the fight or flight response, we might have a beating heart. We might be panicking. We might be unsure, uncertain. Guilt is a powerful driver. Like if I had acted sooner, would my dog still be alive? Or if I had done something differently, would it be a different outcome? So the whole process itself is so alive with focus that the brain just remembers it. It's like it's processed through short-term memory and it's processed into long-term memory because of the emotional power of what's happening at the time. So it's similar to the development of PTSD. If you have a car accident and it's big, your brain is just like, and it might actually cut out some of the memories as a protective thing, or you might get flashbacks. And it's because this big incident has happened that's not the same as every other day. So all of those routine kind of things, someone might say, oh, what did you do on the weekend or your holidays? And you're like, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. But if they say,
I remember the 22nd
in July,
of February.
So if I can remember the night that Hugo passed away vividly, like it was yesterday. And I'll remember, it's those big, like people will remember a wedding or a particularly big birthday. It's those things that have particular meaning and emotional content that the brain is like, all right, we're going to process the smells, the sights, the sounds, the feeling. We're going to process everything, and then it can just get stuck.
Yeah. You mentioned too guilt when you were talking there, the guilt if we'd just done this, I should have done that. Even when intellectually we know that not to be true, those thoughts can just get stuck on repeat, can't they? And I know I spoke with you about when Hugo died, you did something quite extraordinary that I feel like must have taken a lot of emotional resilience and knowledge to be able to do. Can you explain how you dealt with that repetitive guilt thought that in the moment, really?
Yeah, Hugo was probably sicker than any of us thought that he was, and I think he knew how sick he was, and I think potentially Murphy, my terrier, knew how sick he was as well. And he'd been with an emergency vet the day before, and he'd stayed overnight. They'd given him oxygen. They said some things about his heart, and then they were like, no, that's actually not that. We don't know. So he's okay to go home now. He's stabilized. And when I brought him home, I knew he wasn't okay. He was really kind of, that clingy, like that, I'm not close enough to you. And Hugo
Yeah.
can get pretty close. Hugo can basically be 3/4 inside of you,
Yes.
just
That's how
from
I
his
always remember
itching.
him, attached to you.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But
Yes.
this time that wasn't, and that he was distressed, and he kept sort of falling. He was like falling asleep. I was sitting on my chest, but he kept sort of falling asleep. And I thought there's something weird that's going on. But the vets have cleared him, and well, I'll follow up. He'd come to work with me a couple of the days just so I could monitor him.
Yeah.
Um, and I thought, okay, during the week I'll take him to the vet and see what's happening. Um, and then I thought, okay, it's getting really late. I have to go to work in the morning. I really need to sleep. And he wouldn't settle, so I tried to put him in a little pen. Right now, I was sleeping on the couch. I put him in a little pen so he could still see me and I could still reach him. But had then started to get annoyed. I'm like, I've got to go. I have to sleep. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. I've got to sleep. And then an hour or so later, he woke up in distress, and I picked him up, and he disappeared outside. Actually, I had to go and get him from outside. And I woke up my sister, and she'd said, I'll look after Murphy, you take him to the vet. And I was like, no, he's not going there. This is it. He's not gonna make it to the vet. So I wrapped him in my dressing gown, and we all sat with him while he passed away. It was he was really, I think maybe he had some liquid on his lungs or something, like he was drowning.
Yes. Yeah.
And I thought, I'm going to feel really bad about being annoyed that I couldn't go to sleep and that he wouldn't settle. And I thought in that moment, if I focus on that, like I know I'm going to feel guilty about that. So I just have to say right now, you're human. This is how it's happened. There's nothing that's going to change what's happened. It's just how it is.
Yes.
And I've just I had to accept it and be really present with Hugo instead, because it was just how it happened for Huggy. And I wanted to be able to focus on the joy that this dog brought rather than my own guilt about how it happened, because I'm human, and I was tired and stressed and probably scared, and so was he, but I couldn't change it. And I thought, if I don't address this in this
moment,
split second, I'm just going to feel bad about it forever, and that's not going to bring Hugo back. And I didn't want it to colour the absolute joy that
of
this
his
dog
whole
was.
life with you. Yes. Yeah. Of all the
So I kind of I just kind of swallowed it and was like, don't even think, like, just don't make it a thing. And the thought pops up sometimes, that emotional connection to it, that would have been guilt otherwise, it's not there.
I'm just
which I think
it's just such an amazing thing to be able to do that. And I wish I had have done that. And I just know so many people that have suffered so long with guilt. My guilt was that I fell asleep for 2 hours on the couch 5 hours before Comet died, and I had 23 years of loving him, and in my brain was, you missed 2 hours. You missed 2 hours out of his final 7 hours. And this thought was on repeat. It would be like I would wake up with it, I'd go to sleep with it, and then over time somebody gave me a skill to deal with that, which you were able to do in the moment. That's why when you told me that, I was like, wow, because what helped me was the Buddhist approach to having absolute regret about something is to feel that, think what your intention was at that time. And my intention, and most of us who've had this deep love is always to help them, always to do the very best, you know, to love them forever. And that was my intention. And then to forgive yourself, you know, light some incense and let it go. And I had to do that probably 70 times, Nat. I did that. It was a lot. It took me a long time to let go of it. And I just think how beautiful that you had the skill to be able to do that in the moment. And I hope other people hearing that can do that in the moment, because to just, you know, end it then and there.
I know, and look, I did it so. It's almost like it was almost a selfish act in because dogs can't say, "Yeah, I get it, it's okay," and that's one of the other difficult things with grief about animals is they don't have we're so verbal language based, but when we're with our animals, the language is completely different. And like if a groomer cuts Murphy's eyelashes, I can't understand him for a month. I can't.
Okay.
I'm just like, I don't. What do you want? I don't know, because and what I don't realize is how I didn't realize how much I rely on his. He's such an expressive dog, and Hugo was the same. Like they're two dogs that make deep eye contact. But so the language is different with our animals. And I feel like in that, so they can't reassure us. That's the thing. Like they can't say, well, "You did your best." I know that you did your best. We have to, you know, got to almost assume that for them. And when Hugo passed, I thought, I don't want to have to. I'm just not going to let myself feel bad about this. And it's like it's almost selfish. Like I don't. I just can't have that sense of guilt. I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't want to. I don't want this to be the moment that that gets stuck, because it does. And guilt is such a big and normal part of grief. It's so common, whether it's human or animal or other. Guilt is a really big part of it because we want our lives to be good and full of love and for the good things to not go away.
Yes.
And animals are so, their entire life relies on our care of them. So when they die, it can feel like a failure. Like what if the what ifs are horrendous.
Yes.
And they colour the sense of Hugo had 12 fantastic years.
So did he just he,
you know, the woman that had him before me, he just lived outside in this tiny concrete courtyard. And when I asked for a photo of him, she didn't even go outside. She was standing in in the doorway with the camera like this, like taking a photo. Like he'd never been inside. He had a cat for a friend, and he didn't have any toys. He didn't know what treats were, nothing. He'd never been for a walk. And he was so happy when I came out to meet him that he rolled over and peed in this big, big wee over the top of his head. And then
someone has.
I picked him up and he just curled into my chest here. Yeah. Someone is paying attention to me, and he just never left that joy ever. And me feeling bad about being annoyed that he wouldn't settle on the day part, I just couldn't have that. Selfishly, I didn't want that to colour the joy. I just
I think it's a good.
And we all done our, you know, he was unwell, and he had, you know, I probably had him for a year and a half longer than expected after he had a little seizure. We've spoken about it before, but had a little seizure at the Altona Dog Beach. In the shallows, like right at the waterfront, but it was enough to put his snoot underwater, and he inhaled salt water and sort of died on the sand, and I had to revive him. So I was giving him like little, mostly just shouting his name, like, "Don't you know?"
Yes.
Kind of, and then he came to, and I flew him down to our vet, and they saved him. But I think that did damage to his organs. So I think it didn't matter if I was sleeping soundly or wide awake, or it just didn't matter. Hugo was gonna.
It was his
He was
time.
unwell, and that was his time. I feel lucky I was awake and there for it.
Absolutely. That's what I was thinking when you were telling the story and that you made that decision we're going to stay right with him. We're staying right here. This is what we're doing now. We're helping Hugo through his death. Yeah. I wanted to kind of stay in the time immediately after death and just talk about because it is heart-wrenching, heartbreaking, physically awful time, about some self-soothing techniques. When one of my great loves of my life was my rooster, Tilt, and he was really so special to me. That he had a chronic illness, and in the weeks before he passed away, I just was with him constantly, and I would leave him, almost in 5-minute breaks to go and attend to the others and then come back. I put work on hold. Everything was very focused about him. And it had been really for his whole life because he had so many disabilities. When he passed, something quite unexpected happened in my body, because I have experienced that deep feeling in your heart, like your heart is going to break, like your legs don't work, like, that you're screaming into the atmosphere type feeling. But my body actually physically could not stop shaking. I just had so much adrenaline, I think, because I had been used to being on the go, not sleeping for so long. And I just couldn't relate to this constant shaking. It was like I had developed severe Parkinson's disease, in an instant. And actually searched for help on YouTube, and I found a video about parents who are grieving the death of children with special needs, special high needs, and that, after death, the death of their child, they'd experienced similar symptoms. This whole shaking, the body not knowing what to do next, and that weighted blankets had helped. And I got a weighted blanket about the same weight as Tilt, and I sat with that weighted blanket, for quite a while, just to calm down. And, that was something that helped there. But I know that, there must be other things that help in that immediate moment too.
So I think the weighted blanket is a fantastic idea, or even a weighted toy. There's a lot of sensory shops around now that it'll be like a dog, but it'll weigh like 5 kilos or 8,
yes.
So you can get those different weights, and it's like, when someone loses an arm, they can have the phantom limb syndrome. So the brain is like, no, I can still feel pain in the arm.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, no, I don't have an arm. And the brain's like, because everything that we feel it's our brain saying this is what you feel. So if you're spending 24 hours a day caring for something physically, even people with children that have these high needs, you're constantly on alert, and it's directed at someone or something.
Yes.
So there's routine, there's constant connection, whether it's physical or even talking. Like, I talk to my dogs all day.
Yes.
There's tasks that need doing, there's medication that needs fixing, there's all of this attention and this effort is focused onto this being, whether it's animal or child. And when that's not there, all of a sudden that purpose and that meaning and your routine, like your whole life changes.
Absolutely.
And when it's something that we can adapt to things when they're here, but how do you adapt to something that's gone? So the body is looking for that, like, where is that weight? Where is that love?
Where's
Where
my
is this
right
thing
arm?
I've been
Yeah.
caring for? Where's my right arm?
Yeah.
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 And it's also time. So all of a sudden, if I'm working with a client at the moment who had a very, very sick cat, and his whole day, he and his wife would be preparing medications or giving the cat sort of drops, and it would be this whole routine every day, all day long, because he was quite an old cat and a very sick cat. Or it would be trips to the vet to get, this injection or that injection, and their whole day was focused around caring for this cat. And the cat was euthanized by a vet without telling the person, and that has just completely
Whoa.
they're completely traumatized, and they can't grieve their pet properly because it was just taken away from them. But what was also taken away from them was their purpose and their routine and their whole day. All of a sudden, their day is, well, I don't have to prepare this. Like, they've literally got nothing to do, and it's a shock.
And it's identity loss in some way too, isn't it? Because because I would refer to myself as Tilt's mama, when I be talking to the vet or someone else, and I know you as Huggy Murph, which is the combination of your dog's names. It's it's a loss, a big adjustment, huge adjustment. And I think in those, just in the immediacy too, physical things can be really hard to do, like eating. I actually had trouble stopping shaking in this instance, but I'm thinking things like, even if you can eat a piece of chocolate, it at least it's something that you're doing for yourself. Because in that really, intense time, you don't want to then add sickness on top.
That's right. And the amount of sensory stuff is enormous, and I don't think we put enough focus onto that sensory stuff, because dogs or chickens or roosters or cows or humans, they have smell, and they have presence, and they have weight, and they have all of this stuff, and all of that stuff gets taken away from us in grief. So it's like a part of us has died. A part of us has literally died, and the body can just have that response where it literally doesn't know what to do. So you can't get the reassurance, so you can't stroke Tilt again to calm the body down. And animals are really good at helping us regulate our own emotions, because they bring joy. And we can patting an animal releases oxytocin. It releases feel good. It releases dopamine. And when your whole day is focused around that kind of because it is an interaction, it's not one way, it's a bi-directional thing.
Yes.
And when that's gone, like, there's this energy going out there, and there's no response. So the body's like, where is that? Where is it? Where is the other? Where is the part of me that I had? So it brings to mind I think there's a Japanese robot seal, and it's heavy like a baby seal.
Oh, okay.
And they take it to old people's homes to help old people, people in old people's homes.
Old people's homes, yes.
And it helps soothe them, because there's weight, and there's softness, and because it's a robot too, I think it can interact with them a little bit, and it's got those big eyes, so you feel like you're having that care response, and there's something that is receiving it and giving back that kind of emotional regulation. So finding those ways for comfort, I think, are really important, whether it is a piece of chocolate or a weighted blanket, or even having if it's a dog or a cat, having their lead, like Hugo's collar is still in my handbag.
Yes. And I have them around my neck.
Oh, that's amazing.
Do you know what
Yeah.
I have for Tilt? After he died, I made a sculpture of him, and he used to, because of his disability, he would sleep on a pillow, like with his head on a pillow. So it's him sleeping on a pillow. And I saved every feather that he ever lost during his whole life, because chickens molt, sometimes several times a year. And I collected all those feathers. And because I knew his body so well, I put them on this sculpture, like in the exact places. And
Amazing.
every morning when I get up, I kiss his face. So even though it's a plaster face, I've still got, like the little bits of his feathers, and I kiss his high cheekbone, and I just feel, because when I used to kiss his actual face, he used to grin, like do this. And I feel that, like I feel like he's grinning at me doing it. Yeah.
And everyone's will because Hugo was so physical, I feared that
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to get that sense back because I don't have any visual imagination. Like if I close my eyes, all I can see is the back of my eyelids. There's no visual stuff. And what goes along with that is that reduced sense of being able to imagine smell or touch or
Okay.
other of the senses. So I would feel like I will never be able to feel Huggy draped. He would drape. He
I
would like
know.
drape
It was,
himself.
yeah.
Um,
It's like one of those monkey toys.
and I just thought I'll never be able to. I can't even conjure up an imagination, an imaginative version, a pretend version of how that felt. But and I thought that's going to really impact how I remember him. But it hasn't, because they just fill such a huge space in your heart, that I feel like he's still with us.
Yes.
But I do have some days where I just think, I really, really miss that dog and I can't have him back.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, one of those hardest emotions is that you can't have another day with them. You can't have them back. But then I've just got to remember how much he enjoyed his life. And that helps. So it's about how we remember them as well, and what is there in what parts of them have we kept, or how have we memorialized them, so that we can think back on them and not be scared of feeling that regret or that pain. Because I mean, it really speaks to how important they are to us, that there is still that mix of really strong emotion to their loss, and then trying to put in the good times for them. I just went off on a tangent then.
No, and I'm going to keep going on that tangent with you, because I feel that when we have experienced that deepest grief, it opens us up to a whole new realm and a whole new way of being. And I feel like I can actually connect with people who I know have felt that deep grief, because there's something about them. It's almost like saying, I'm carrying the energy of my beloved with me. I'm still Tilt's mama. I'm still Comet's mum. I'm just bringing them with me in my life. And, it's okay to cry about them, but also I need to have a purpose in my life that honors them. So it gives reason to keep going, because, life was short with them. We're not going to be here that long. It can end at any time. And I feel like I just want to spend my life honoring them, because it allows them to continue to be. I mean, I know that they're still in the other realm, and I feel them there all the time. But it allows them to kind of come into the physical world through me.
Absolutely. I think I'm not a religious person at all. My family have a background, they're Catholics going way back. So, we were taught that idea of heaven, or the afterlife. And I think from a sort of an atheist, or what's the other one as well? Agnostic, because the world is pretty amazing, and I don't mind to say there's not another thing. It very may well be. But I think for me, what the afterlife or heaven would consist of is the memories that we carry with the ones that we have lost. So Hugo still has a big part. He's in my memories, and he's in your memories, and he's in my family's memories, and he's in the memories of lecturers at the University of New England that knew him. Like, this dog is, they live in that ongoing memory of who they were and what impact they had. And I found a really good quote actually by I think they're an experiential therapist, although I'm not entirely sure what that means. But on grief, so her name's Marie Jose. I can't say her surname. Daisy. Dhaese. Daz. I'm not sure. But she says coping effectively with grief is not the process of forgetting; it's the process of remembering with less pain and more joy.
Wow.
And I think that's almost that process that happened on the night that Hugo died. It was like, this is how it's going to be, and I need that joy to outshine what's happening right now, because
remembering with less pain and more joy.
More joy.
Wow.
Because they did. Even.
I love it, because it means that the love continues to grow, doesn't it?
Yes.
After death.
Yeah. And not being afraid of, grief is something we don't want to, it feels horrible. It feels, it's physical. It can be a physical pain. It can be a really complex, layered thing, particularly when it's very isolating when it's pets. When it's say a parent or a sibling or a friend, there's a whole lot of people that know this person. You can go and have a wake, and people can chat, and they've experienced the person, and you're part of something. But with our animals, with our companion animals, those relationships are very deeply personal. And while a dog like Hugo managed to captivate the general public somehow, I don't think that's I'm not sure that that's a common experience.
And even then, even when you do have a non-human animal in your life who does captivate, just reach far and wide, there's still that voice that says, none of them are suffering as much as I am.
And the overarching idea that it's just a pet, they'll get over it. But it's just not. Dogs particularly have been a companion animal for us for, millennia. There's a reason for that. We're so connected. But a lot of people still can't see past that. That's just it's that word, just. It minimizes what their role is in our lives and our role in theirs. And it's an enormous loss, but one that can be incredibly isolating and lonely because of the level of that connection that we have with them that isn't shared by others. And I think it does take other animal lovers to understand the enormity of what's happened when we lose one of them.
And I think I know when I lost my boy Comet, I went into a place where I felt more isolated than I've ever felt in my life. And I work, I work as a dog trainer, so I'm surrounded by people who love dogs. I'm surrounded by people who love animals with Rosie's Hospice, but I felt completely isolated. Like, this was the biggest pain and no one else could understand it. It was almost like it was just my connection. I had to find ways to be able to exist in the world, because you need to keep going. I needed to keep going for my other animals, needed to continue to work and be around people and their dogs and that type of thing. And so I just wanted to finish by talking about that, because people would say things to me like, it gets easier. And at the time, I was just so shut down to it. But now I agree. It does get easier. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here. It does, the pain still stays there, but it might help just to have some techniques of how do we kind of put on the costume and head out into the world and still be honouring our grief.
It's again, it's that difficulty too with other people. There could be that feeling of, oh, okay, well, if my dog's passed, and well, I'm just going to go to work, and you think, well, is that minimizing their life? Like, where it feels like we're not honouring their existence and their importance, because we're trying to carry on, and it very much at the start there is that sense of having to wear that mask of, okay, I'm just going to like dip my toe back into work or just be at work, and I'm just going to sort of hold my breath for 8 hours, and then I'm going to we've talked about it before, just have a cry in the car park, and it can feel like, if I don't, I mean, with Hugo, I thought, do I feel bad enough? Have I grieved? Like,
isn't that? Yeah.
And I was grief struck. I was just crying. But I did a lot of processing when, in the moments that he was dying, I was saying, it's okay, you can go. It's all right. You're okay. We're okay. Just, it's okay. And then it's the first time I've had a pet. I've had pets die before, but Murphy, Huggy Murph were my first dogs that were for me.
Yes.
So it's the first time I've experienced that kind of loss. And sometimes I thought, am I honouring him enough? Am I just forgetting that he existed by having to go to work? And that's really complex, because we do need to sort of pretend for a while, because we do have to go to work. And we do have to start living again without them. And that can sometimes feel like, well, have I just minimized what they meant to me because I can continue and they can't continue because they're gone? So I think when there's a grief like this, where possible, for people that have annual leave, I'd be taking some annual leave. But not too long, because it does help to get back out there and start doing the routine parts of life, the boring parts, the sweeping the floor or going to the supermarket to get milk, like all of that normal stuff. We've just got to we have to do it. And it also starts opening us up to, being with the people that we care about, if we're at a good workplace, or it could be a workplace where you're like, I hate these people. But even, in the moment when you're at work, when things can become unbearable, just taking yourself to the toilet for a cry can be helpful, because it helps to get it out. So, and then, having a wash of the face and going back in, and over time, although it feels like it at the time that this will never feel better, over time it does improve. And like that quote says, you start looking at it with less pain and more joy.
Yeah. It's so true. And I find that sometimes the firsts are the hard things to do, because I found, like, the first time standing in front of people again and being with their dogs, I was driving there thinking, how can I do this? It's been 23 years and I've taken him with me every day. How can I stand in front of people with their dogs? And then when I got there, in that moment, the dogs helped me. They all helped me. It was like they were all had Huggy Murph energy. They just were almost there going, come on, we've got you. And I realised that I could take life moment by moment, and things happen. And it's the same, this, latest heartbreak that I had to go to the vet clinic after Tilt had passed, and they really loved him, and he loved going there too. And in the past, when I've had big heartbreaks, I actually can't go back to a vet clinic that I used to use because I just didn't do it afterwards. And I'm in the phase now, like, oh, it's too late. I don't want to deal with that again. So with
That's a
common,
huge,
I think,
yeah.
with this vet, because I really love this clinic, and I thought I need to go back there. So I went back and I took them a gift from Tilt. And I was in the car expecting, oh, this is going to be so hard. I'm going to have to not breathe. I'm going to have to suck the tears back in, all of these things, saying to myself, don't cry. And I went in there and once again, there was a dog in there that just helped me. And, they just, it's almost like you get helped along the way to do these little things.
There's very much that, grief, moving on from grief, has that sense of leaving something behind. And the guilt that comes with, going on without that person or that animal.
Yeah.
Whereas what we're really doing is we're taking them with us. They're coming with us. They're still with us. But it feels like you've moved on, and it feels guilty, like, oh, I shouldn't be able to continue living or feel happy because I've lost you and you can't come anymore. But very much that sense of, taking that experience that we've had with them and holding it with us means they continue, they come with us.
Yes.
They're still on that journey with us, and that it's okay to go back out there and do stuff, because, Hugo wouldn't want me to be crying on the couch for forever, although I would like to.
Yeah.
He would just be like, today's
the best day ever. This is the best day.
This is it. This is the best day. Like, go out and have your best day, and it's okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
But with not going back, I mean, Murphy didn't get a haircut for nearly a year. Because I just couldn't go back to the groomer, because they loved Hugo and they loved Murphy, but I just couldn't make a phone call and say, can I get a groom? And I hadn't even been going there for that long, but I just couldn't.
Professional people listening to this and going, oh, that's why. It's not that we did a bad job. It's not that we, they just can't get there because it's too painful. Yeah.
And sometimes we don't even know that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's just such a routine. I mean, going to the groomers is such a routine thing, but after a while I was like, oh my God, it's because, like, Hugo had a groom really like 2 weeks before he died. And I think that, I just couldn't, maybe it felt like I was moving on if I make that the next grooming appointment for Murphy and now Momo, and that would, it kind of makes it even more real. Yes. When life goes on, which it inevitably does. I mean, the only thing I can guarantee is time passes. So what do we do with it?
Yeah. What do we do with it? Yeah, we keep honouring them. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
To ask, if somebody's in a desperate state of heartbreak and things are not getting any better, is there help available? Yeah,
look, I would say, organisations like Beyond Blue, so you can call them for free. They're like Lifeline. I'm just getting us the phone number, actually.
I can put it in the
and they're 24/7. So okay, that'd be great. So Beyond Blue is good because, grief is enormous, and whether it's, you're grieving a pet or a human or just like, it doesn't matter who you're grieving. It's real, and it is painful. And sometimes we just need to reach out to talk to someone in that moment. So Beyond Blue is good for that. Or even seeking support from a grief counsellor or a psychologist. And, if there's anyone in the, I wonder if, psychologists, we could provide grief services through vets. That's something I'll check Oh, maybe I'll think about that outside of this
Yes,
interview.
isn't it amazing how I'm just thinking, you know, how we were just talking about keeping their love continuing. I feel like that's a continuation of Huggy going, oh, hang on, Mum, hey, wake up. This is something maybe you could.
They could call
They're
you
always
human.
there. They're helping.
Yeah.
They're helping.
Yeah, so and not being ashamed to reach out for that kind of support. But, you know, because there is that societal idea, like we talked earlier about, it's just a pet. It doesn't matter that they're companion animals. It doesn't matter. Like, the grief is real, and
Yes.
some people will get that and some people won't. So if you call and contact a grief counselor or a psych and they're like, oh, okay, well, whatever, they might just not be the professional for you. So it's okay to find someone that you connect with to
Yeah.
have these discussions.
And you know, when I've come across those type of people now, I look at them I used to look at them with anger and like, oh God, how can you not get it? But look at them now, almost with compassion, because I think one day you'll know this pain, you'll know it. It might not come with an animal for you, but you know, everybody's going to feel this at some level. I think it really it does open us up, doesn't it, to being able to connect better with
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, now that I've gone through what I did with Hugo, which is, you know, I didn't think would ever happen because I assumed that he would live forever, or at least until I died and I didn't have to know that loss. But the reality is they do go before us and we do feel that loss. But I think it also allows us to let more love in, and you know, not being afraid to talk about the ones that we've lost. I talk about Hugo all the time. And just I fear how I will respond when it happens for Murphy.
Yes.
But again, it's that process of we're coming up to 13 years of a wonderful life together. So holding on to the joyful moments and feeling the pain. It's like, it's okay to feel how horrendous grief is.
Yes.
It's a really big part of life, and it really speaks to how important a connection is.
Absolutely.
And being able to sit in it and sit with it and accept it and let it happen. And that will give us that room to, again, remember with joy.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. That was really good.
Thank you. I feel like saying thank you to Huggy too.
He was a special, special creature. I literally have photos of him haunting my dog door, because you'd be like, where's Hugo? And he'd just be in the doggy door, just sort of like looking through it. I'm like, oh God. So he's an excellent dog for haunting as well, because he was just, he looks like a little ghost.
He does. Beautiful.